All right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right. What it do, chicken stew, man? It's the Copper Colored King. We back in this bad boy with some more good content, man. And I just got a message for the folks, for those who plan to tune in, for those who are tuned in. I see you, sis. What it do, chicken stew? Hope all is well. I appreciate you for tuning into this live tonight, because I'm about to drop a real dope, informative one, man, just to put people on, right? Just to keep people informed. A lot of people don't know about this information right there. A lot of people are highly misinformed, right? I see folks on TikTok when they talking about this aboriginal ancestry stuff, going on about how they the descendants of the Azteks and descendants of this tribe, that tribe, blah, 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 without actually doing the chronological research, like without actually researching who was where, like, who was what, the different things that were happening on our continent or in our country at that time, rather, I should say. Right? It was a lot of things happening, like a lot of tribes migrating in America, a lot of tribes migrating out of America. Just a whole lot of stuff going on. I hope you feel better, sis. I'm praying for you always. I'm always praying for my family, man, my copper colored family. But more or less, I just wanted to touch bases on that, give people a better understanding of where I'm heading at with this video. With that being said, man, just to go through it real quick, I want to give people real quick a timeline of a world history, specifically here in America, in the Americas, North America, Mesoamerica, South America, just so that we could see the different tribes or the different groups of people who dwelt on this land at what specific time, right? Because it's all about timestamps when we talking about this stuff. You got to be accurate with the timestamps, because if you don't understand the timestamps or know what these different periods of time, then you won't be able to accurately do the research or even figure this stuff out for yourself. I give people a great example. Not too many people know that there were a million different groups of people dwelling here in America before any Aztec could have been thought of, before any Inca was thought of, before any Olmec was thought of, right? There were different groups of peoples all walking around, some around the same time as the Sumerians and the Egyptians. Some around the same time as the Sumerians and the Egyptians, dwelling at the same time as the Sumerians and the Egyptians. Why do I keep repeating that? Right? Because those people are what historians tell us are the oldest nations known to man. But that's cap. That's all ballpark, because the relics in America alone let us know that it was some folks over here. Case in point, right? We got the stones, right? My favorite one, Commandment Rock. The Los Dela Dugas, Dela Lunas, Los Lunas, Delugas stone. I forgot the name. The Bat Creek stone, just different relics, right? I've even discovered that there were 50 different Mayan temples in the lowlands of Yucatan. They just found this out on Halloween. I just dropped the video. And the Yucatan, if y'all been following, that specific area is so important because there's a real possibility that is where the cradle of civilization resides. Right? And I say this to say as well, because the Olmecs, right? They dwelt in the Yucatan. The Mayans dwelt in the Yucatan. And there were tribes who dwelt in the Yucatan prior to the Olmecs and the Mayans. The Olmecs and the Mayans just had high levels of civilization and culture going about, right? They had the muscle, the money, the finances. They had stuff that other people didn't have that were here in America. And these people that were here in America was the folks that they were saying were walking around butt naked, eating people and cannibals and whatnot. Even me, myself, I've even thrown a lot of shade at these cannibalistic, quote unquote, people, not really understanding, like I said, what was going on at that period of time in history. I even had to think about it coming out of the flood. You ain't got nothing. Like, just imagine a nuke hit America today and everything just wiped out. We ain't got no clothes to put on our back, right? It's hot as hell outside, right? It's a flood. We got lava and volcanoes and all of that just finished erupting. All of that stuff going on. The water recedes. We come up out the land, right? We gonna be walking around like apes and Neanderthals, right? Trying to make weapons, stick stones, right? Trying to cook with whatever we have. Some of us might just even be eating people, right? Coming out of the flood. This is why I say, man, ancient America, the true old world, every time they make mention of naked people and cannibals, they always talking about the Indians. Well, why do they do that? There's a real possibility that we are, or those people are, our ancestors are the world's oldest civilizations. Check it right here. So I got this from usefulcharts.com. You guys could go check out their website, right? They even got a book. It's $30 where you could get the full chart. It's something I'm actually going to do a video on myself, right? Because I gotta show people this, because we could correlate this stuff with the timestamps of other civilizations that were here in America. I mean, that were on this earth years and years ago, and all of these people dwelling at the same time, right? If there was communication now with America and tribes over in the Middle East and whatnot, I'm pretty sure that type of stuff been going on for thousands and thousands of years. But this is my example right here, right? Case in point. Let me see what you said, sis. I gotta pull the chat box out. Yeah, they do. They have some really great videos. I'm happy there's another person that knows. They have really great videos. I learned a lot from being on their channel. Check it out. You know, I'm even going to drop a book like this myself, just showing people the kids, the old names of some of the states here in America, right? Our countries, our true countries and whatnot. But like I said, for example, in 26,000 BCE, before Christ existed, there was a tribe of people, or going up to 33,000 BCE, the Andean peoples, right? This is in South America. Those people were called the Norte Chico civilization, right? I'm going to do more research on them myself, but what I've discovered was that they're a pre-Columbian civilization, right? And it is the oldest known civilization in the Americas, right? As we see in the map. They flourished between the 13th century BCE and the 18th century BCE. And the alternative name is Corral Supe and is derived from the Corral in the Supe Valley, a large, well-studied Norte Chico site. These people, so to say what they say, had a complex society, and they emerged just a millennium after Sumeria. The Sumerians, just a millennia after Sumeria, right? We don't even know how true that possibly is. They could have been here at the same time as the Sumerians. At the same time, right? This is just according to their science, their research, right? But we all know now at this very point in life that stuff is not always accurate, right? You still finding relics of the past, and it's 2024. I don't believe nothing you got to say. Everything they say to me now, everything I see is all ballpark. Is all ballpark now. But anyway, right? And they were contemporaneous with the pyramids of ancient Egypt. And they predated the Olmecs by nearly 2 millennia. Right? So these Norte Chico people, they were like right there in the middle. Right? You got Sumer, then you had the Norte Chico peoples, And then you have folks like the Olmecs, right? But according to our research and the things we've seen and read, and check out my old videos, there's a possibility that these Egyptians dwelt around the same time as some of these ancient folks who were here on this land. Let's take the Nagas, for example. Right? The Nagas been here for a minute. The Nagas actually go hand in hand with Egyptians and Mayans. Right? They've been here for a long time. The Poverty Point culture, they've been here for a long time. Right? Those people were here a long time ago. Right? Different folks just dwelling on the lands around different times. Right? Way before an Aztec, way before an Incan, way before many of these Native Americans that you see today. Way before. They don't even look like any of them. Right? But anyway, just to finish showing y'all. Right? Check this. So, look, Poverty Point culture existed between 1800 BCE, 1400 BCE. What else we got? Then we break into the Olmecs. Poverty Point is older than the Olmec society. And like I said in my last video, for those who didn't check it out, I actually got it right here. The Zoque Indians, the Zoque, predate the Olmec. They were here before the Olmec, right here in Mexico, or what would be going towards Guatemala, towards the Yucatan or whatnot. And they even say it here is that the world's ancient civilizations, and let me pull this up for y'all, just so y'all can check this out. Oops, give me 1 second. And it even say it, the world's ancient civilizations were resourceful blends of language, ethnicity, and popular culture. They let us know. Entangled in the middle of Mesoamerican genesis was a precious society whose attributes are now coming into sharper relief thanks in part to investigations financed by Brigham Young's University, New World Archaeological Foundation, and the National Geographic Society, in collaboration with investigators from Mexico's Instituto Nacional of Anthropology and History and National Anonymous University. The ancient Zoque of Western Chiapas appear to have shaped beliefs and traditions that became commonplace among their Mesoamerican neighbors. These people shaped traditions and beliefs that became commonplace among their Mesoamerican neighbors. Right? They created the cultures, the basis to the cultures of what some of the people carried with them at that time. Folks like the Olmecs, right? Because they were here before the Olmecs. They even found remnants of their pyramids, right? Remnants of their pyramids that still exist till this day, right? And it says the tomb exhibits Olmec. Right, they talking about a tomb in one of the mounds of pyramids. It exhibits Olmec rather than Maya. Jade beads fashioned into duck heads, clamshells, pumpkin-shaped gourds, and bamboo shoots are similar to artifacts excavated 70 years ago at the Mammoth Gulf Olmec site of La Venta. La Venta being a real extreme anthropolog. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Right, but look, they saying that the remnants, what they found in the mounds of these people, can be connected to the Olmecs, right? But these people were here before the Olmecs. Case in point, they're shaping societies, right? They shape societies. That's what that lifestyle was like back then. And people, I'm going to let y'all know, folks was just coming in the land and openly just taking what folks had going on and making it their own. Like the whole Quetzalcoatl deity, right? Folks took that, made it their own, and then turned it into some type of human sacrificial lamb god. When in reality, that's just the deity for the Mayans or for the ancient Nagas. If we could connect it to their story, they had a whole different name for the brother. We're going to get into it in a later live stream. I'm going to bring this book, The Lost Continent of Muriel, and is going to talk more about it. But they making the deities their own, just changing things, right? And reshaping history, right? That's what was going on. And it's the truth, because we see it till this day, right? People being absorbed into different societies, being forced to believe in different things, changing their very ways of life. Folks speaking new languages, right? It's something that had been happening throughout history for many, 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 many years. Many years, right? So anywho, moving forward, another group of people I wanted to talk about. Like I said, going to the images, right? We have the Zapotec's Teotihuacan, right? Something built by the Mexica people and the introductions of the Mayans. Folks forget, though, the Mayans existed long before the Olmecs. People don't, not even forget, people don't even understand that. Right? And this is why this timelines and charts is very, very important, because it takes us back in history. Right? When I start going into the Lost Continents of Mu book, we're going to understand the Mayans' role in the foundation of the world we see, or the foundation of man, right? How deep their history goes, right? And how we could connect the Mayans to the Egyptians, and then the Egyptians to the Nacals. The Nacals being some of the world's first peoples, right? If we talking in terms of a biblical flood, right? But I'm not going to make it confusing for people, right, to understand. Let's move forward, right? And not for the listeners that's actively listening now, but for those who plan to tune in a little later, you know, I want to make it understandable. You know, we got to understand what was going on. So, yeah, who else do I want to look at real quick? Okay, yeah, real quick. So I just wanted to show y'all these maps, right? These maps depict the ancient land, the ancient homeland of the Mexica people, Aztlan, being in Northwest America, right? This is where the Aztecs and several other tribes came from, including the Zapotec's and the Toltecs, right? Other tribes, sons of Japheth, people that we're going to learn about in this live stream, and how they came from this land into Mexico and just pretty much dominated and took over. And I want to tell y'all this, right? Their prophecy for showing how they was going to dominate was basically an eagle perched on a cactus, right, with a snake in its mouth. Very, very, very symbolic. Because we got to understand what the symbol of the snake means and what the symbol of the eagle means. The eagle is a symbol that comes from Tartary, if I'm not mistaken, the Mongols, and a lot of other people over that way. And then the snake would be the symbol for the Mayans, the Nagas, right? The Egyptians, and many other different peoples. We talking about snake worship. And I'm still trying to understand this stuff a little bit myself, but I'm going to show y'all, right? We're going to correlate different books. I'm going to show y'all just how crazy this stuff gets. Like I said, these tribes, these different peoples left their homeland of Aztlan and invaded Mexico, took over, and made everything their own, right? They are not from there. There were already people there, dwelling there, and those people can potentially be connected to the first people, to man, to the origins of man, right? Can't even say the first people, the origins of man, right? So we could just call them conquerors of the conquerors of the kings of men. All right, that's what I call it. But anywho, so yeah, right, Turtle Island being America, right? It says the Hopi tradition, the Turtle Island is North America with 4 arms, a head, and a tail. One arm is Baja, another the Bay Area Peninsula, another is Florida, the other long island is Nova Scotia, the tail leads down to Central America, the head of the Bering Strait. the head to Bering Strait. 1847 Disternal map may show us that Aztecs did not migrate north, but migrated south. Right? They didn't come from Mexico. They migrated into Mexico. Map shows us that the Aztecs once lived north of the Hopi tribe. Right? Aztecs north of the Hopis. The map is connected to the 1848 Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo and shows 3 migration points depicting a southerly migration route beginning in Utah and including an Antigua Residencia de los Aztecas, ancient residence of the Aztecs. The existence of the Disternal map and others now clearly show us that places that had names like Moctezuma and Aztec were already established priority to the archaeological theories that credit the naming of these places on the romanticism of 19th century U.S. archaeologists. A lot of people don't know this, but there was a land in the Southwest called Moctezuma or Moctezuma, right? The name deriving from the origins of Mu, or Mu, the homeland of man. That's what it means. Not as in Moctezuma, the king of the leader of the Aztecs. There was different ways you could pronounce Moctezuma, and all of those different names had different meanings. And we're going to learn that once we start reading this book, The Lost Continents of Mu. So anywho, it says, more evidence can be found to support the Aztec claim to North America through linguistics. The Uto Azteca language family spreads from as far as North Canada down through South America. Researchers of the maps, Rodriguez and Gonzalez, also believe that corn and their corn-based diets link the families together as one, right? The Utes of Utah and the Aztecs being connected, right? Also having other connections with tribes as far as Canada. Check this. According to Rodriguez, corn is a plant whose seeds that must be cultivated. They do not blow in the wind. Once you look at it, it's obvious. It is a story about how everyone is related. And here we have more maps. In the spring of 2005, the Wisconsin Historical Society Memorial Library at the University of Wisconsin at Madison exhibited the 19th, 16th century maps that indicate or allude to an ancient Mesoamerican presence and migrations from what is today the United States. Right? It says the exhibits included chronicles, codices, annals, and interviews regarding oral traditions that speak to ancient connections between peoples of the North and South. Part of the objective of the map exhibits examines how cartographers addressed this subject from the 1500s through the 1800s. This exhibit is the result of part of work of several Hopi elders, including the late David Monogui and Thomas Banyaka, who passed on their knowledge of these maps. The documents firmly establish that the Hopi never surrendered their sovereignty and point to an ancient Mexican presence in their midst. They never surrendered their sovereign nation pride to any of the Meixca tribes, right, while they were dwelling together. Right, they're closely connected, though. That's how connected the Hopi are to the Aztecs, right? It says, the overall theme of this exhibit is an examination of maps and chronicles from the 1800s, 1500s that show Mesoamerican roots in what is today the United States. It is a part of a larger collaborative and ongoing research effort that examines ancient connections between peoples of the North and South. Many of the maps point to several sites purportedly associated with Aztec, Mexica peoples and their migrations, but also with older ancient Mexican, Chichimeca, and Toltec migrations and that of Central and South American peoples as well. Right? Now this can instantly connect us back to Manco Capac and the Inca and their arrival in South America, right, and the many different tribes along the southwest and northwest of America, these 7 tribes that came into Mexico, and how all of these people could have migrated from Asia. Tarters. All Tartars, all different groups of peoples who migrated into America and reshaped the history of the land, right? Took on all of the stuff that already existed, made it their own, and changed how everything looked. Down to how the Aboriginal Indian looks, right? Now we see the picture of an Aboriginal Indian, right? And they not going to look like who they supposed to look like, right? They not going to look like who they supposed to look like. How can this be an Aboriginal when she looks like exactly what she's supposed to look like? Right? Siberians, right? Asian people, Chinese people. This is just the truth. Granted, not all of these folks were tan and looked Asian. Some had color too. Some were black too. You had black Aztecs. You had black Incas, right? Mango Capac was a black man. All of the Incas were colored, copper colored, so to say. Some of the Aztecs copper colored, right? But point is, all of those peoples migrated here into America and took over what already had existed. They were already people here. Right? There were already many different groups of peoples here. And this is why we're going to go into the book, The Lost Continent of Mu, because it's going to touch bases on that. I want to introduce this part to y'all real quick before we even go into these two articles, right? This back into the ancient Tartarian invasion of America and basically Aztlan, from mythos to logos in the American Southwest. From this one, I'm going to read a short part just to talk about the Aztlan history. Check out these codexes right here, which depict their migration into Mexico and some of their philosophy, right? We're going to talk about that. We're going to go into it a little bit, right? We're just going to read bits and pieces because I want to save the good stuff, right? But real quick, so in the Lost Continent of Mu book, it speaks of these Nagas or these men from Mu. And just check out what it says, right? Now, remember, I said the Aztec depiction of their conquest of of Mexico, is basically an eagle perched on a cactus with a serpent in his mouth. Check this. So, it says in the Lost Continent of Mu, it says, originally, the universe was only a soul or spirit. Everything was without life. Calm, silent, soundless. Void and dark was the amenity of space. Only the Supreme Spirit, the great self-existing power, the Creator, the seven-headed serpent, moved within the abyss of darkness. The seven-headed serpent. We talking about the one Creator, the Supreme Spirit, a seven-headed serpent. So when these Meixca depict their conquest of Mexico as an eagle perched on a cactus with a snake in its mouth, what are you really saying? What are they really trying to say? Right? We know the Maya were the folks who was active in the Yucatan around that time. It was active. So what do you mean? Eagle perched on the cactus with the snake in his mouth. When in the Mayan history, we got the serpent as a representation of the Supreme Spirit. So what are you saying? Right? What are you saying? Look, the seven superlative intellects of the seven-headed serpent gave 7 commands. I shall use the Nakal esoteric meanings as they are the most intelligible to the reader. The Demodic are all symbolical and not easily understood. These are the commands, right? These are commands. These are commands from the seven-headed serpent. Now, Like I said, what do they mean when they saying the eagle was perched on a cactus with the serpent in his mouth? What is that a representation of? Right? When we understand where these people come from and what they did when they got here, what would you consider that to be a representation of? Right? One tribe conquering another? Right? One group of people representing one thing, another group of people representing another, them coming in, invading, and assimilating, taking over. They say the Mayans died off, but how true is that? You got Mayans even in North America. I showed y'all this prior before. Check this out. The Florida Mayas. Right? The Black Seminoles. They don't want to be called Seminole. They want to be called Maya. Right? They did not call themselves Seminoles or Creeks. They called themselves Mayas and would continue to until the federal government refused to recognize them by that name in 1955. In 1955, how recent is that? So the Mayas, they still here. They still exist. We still walking with them. Just folks refuse to recognize them ever since their quote unquote departure or erasure or destruction. More or less, though, like I said. So understanding Aztlan. What are we going to understand about Aztlan after this? Well, it says, in order to navigate the contradictions of the rhetorical notion of Aztlan, a term rebirthed from the Chicano movement in the late 1960s, and whether or not it geographically and geoculturally relates to the contemporary thought, Aztlan's literal symbology, its philosophical relevance, and debated meaning across time must be assessed. Anthropologists have discovered evidence of remains dating as far back as 3,500, 8,000 BCE from the Texas Southwest and Arizona regions. So these Mexicas and Aztecs, they've been in Aztlan since 3,500 BCE. That's what it's saying. Going back to the charts, what do we know about peoples who was dwelling around that time? So what we got in 3,500 BCE, around this time, we have the oldest Norte Chico civilization, quote unquote, according to scientists or historians in South America. We can now place Aztlan as being as that old, as far as being that old, right? 3,500 BC to 8,000 BCE. So again, another old nation, according to their evidence, here in America. So this is what also folks can mean when they talking about as far this East Asia you can go, right? As far this East Asia you can go. Queen Khalifa, the Tartars, right? The Griffin flag, right? All of these correlations, right? All of these different connections, right? The farthest East Asia you can go. We can bring this, we can tie all of that together if we using these dates, right? And these evidences or evidence that these folks use, right? According to anthropological research on Indian languages, social organization, material culture, and origin myths, the Southern Arizona Cochise culture is credited with being the parent culture of the peoples as far apart as the Ute of Colorado and the Aztec of the Valley of Mexico. So the Southern Arizona Cochise culture. What do we get from this right here? I didn't even think to look into this. Cochise tradition lasted nearly 5 millennia from Secursa 5000 until Secursa, if I'm pronouncing that word right, 200 BC. Its early manifestation is known as Sulphur Spring. Its two later phases is called the Chirichihuaca and San Pedro are much better known. The Cochise tradition was named after Lake Cochise, an ancient lake now found in the Wilcox Playa of Cochise County, Arizona. So these people are an ancient American Indian culture that existed perhaps 9,000 to 2,000 years ago. And they're from New Mexico. Very, very, very interesting. So how many other people can we connect to these Cochise? Right? So we see Clovis. So this is something new that I'm learning about at this current point. Definitely going to save this for more research. So let's continue though. So yeah. So we got another ancient culture that existed here in America. The Southern Arizona Cochise culture. And these were the people who would have been dwelling in Aztlan. These are the parents of the Utes and the Aztecs, the Mexicas, the 7 tribes who came from Aztlan into Mexico. So again, when we think about Aztecs, we got to think about who came before them. And those who came before them were these Southern Arizona Cochise people who can also be connected to the Utes, right? And the Utes, this means we can connect those folks to the Aztecs. And then the Utes can also be connected with a tribe over in Siberia. So what does that tell us? Linguistically, they can be connected. Linguistically, they share common languages. So what does that tell us about these people? It tells us a lot about these people. Right? And some of these Utes being copper colored, Aztecs also copper colored. But it tells us a lot about their origins and where they come from. Right? These Tartars that came into America. Right? Further research shows that sometime after 1000 BCE, communication between the American Southwest and the Valley of Mexico increased, which was due in part to the Uto-Aztecan population migrating south while the cultivation of maize began to head north. Northern and southern populations were intersecting, and eventually the hunting and gathering Cochise culture started to disappear, replaced by the more Angarian cultures of the Mongolon, Hohokam, Anasazi, and the Pueblos. Naturally, with trade came transculturation. Around this time, according to Nahuatl Aztec legends, that 7 Nahuatl tribes, the Xochimilca, the Talhuica, Alcuja, the Tlaxtecas, the Tapaneca, Chalaca, and Meixca, from 7 different caves, and all who spoke the same Nahuatl language, left their respective caves and settled in Aztlan, which became their homeland and a place for unification. Right? These caves potentially being in an icy or cold region. Right? Those caves, they left the caves around the time where the ice began to recede and found a home in Aztlan. These people were trying to make their way here to America and did not find a route until the ice began to melt. If there was ice, if anything like that. I'm not saying they came from southern Mexico. I'm saying that they came from, southern Arizona. I'm saying that they came from Asia, sis. Asia. They came from Asia and then migrated to Mexico. And then went to Mexico. And they weren't from over here. See, look, this is the point that lets us know right here. It's 7 tribes. 7 Nahuatl tribes. They left from caves and settled in Aztlan. Aztlan would be the Southwest. That would be Arizona. They left these caves, these cavemen, that's what I'm going to call them, cavemen, these Tartars, they were held up in the icy, cold, desolate regions. If you check out my old video, 2 of my old videos, right? The ancient Grand Canyon ones, they talk about this. They talk about how these folks had to migrate through a cold, desolate area. And it was very, very cold. And if an ice age was actually present at one point in time, these people would have had to wait until the ice melted for them to cross over. That's why they say they left the caves, and when they came to Aztlan, started to mingle with the other peoples who were already there. Right? That's why it takes us back to stuff like this. Queen Khalifa was known to swoop in on a griffin, all right? Her symbol was a griffin. I gotta find it for y'all. Right? Oh, yeah, remember, California used to be considered a island, right? But Queen Khalifa rode in on a griffin, right? This is the correlation I'm trying to make for y'all. Right, so just bear with me. Bear with her, brother. Right, Queen Khalifa and her griffin. The griffin was her best friend. Like, people, just to let y'all know, the griffin was her best friend. Now, when you look at the Tartarian flag, I always make this, I make mentions of it. What you see on the flag, it's a griffin. It's a griffin. Right, so yeah, definitely. Nah, it's not like they really walked on ice. It's like they had to wait for it to open up, right? For it to open up. This is also why they say California was on an island. The Amazonian warriors in them, Queen Khalifa and them, if we're going to say that they were real, they were on the island alone by themselves, right? She discovered that island alone. They created that island alone. No men, men were the slaves, if you guys know the story, right? There were no other people there with them on that island until a much later time. And at some point, they were able to invade, conquer, and overthrow. I don't know in between what time where California became a part of the land, but that's the story as far as the island of California. But yeah, so the people, they had to wait until it opened up. And this is why they say they came out the caves. The caves would have been in the cold, desolate regions, and they came to Aztlan, mixed in, mingled with a lot of the people, and then moved further south and further colonized and dominated other peoples. Right, so look though, right, so what else we got? I don't want to confuse people. I feel like I'm getting tongue-tied myself, but I'm giving it to y'all the best way I possibly could. I smoke weed and shit, so I'll be on a whole nother time. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. But anywho, so yeah, look, these 7 tribes together, they became the Mexicas, and they migrated south in search of their promised land. As interpreted from the Aztec codices, their southward peregrination began around 1064 CE and ended when they encountered their prophetic vision of an eagle perched on a cactus, right? These Tartars, fascinated with eagles and griffins, the eagle was perched on a cactus, devouring a snake. So this is how these Mexicas were able to identify Mexico City as the land that they were going to call home. But like I just explained, there were already people there. So they didn't take claims to a land that did not already have people dwelling within, its own beautiful culture. No, they took over. That's the symbol of the eagle eating a snake. Right? We're dominating these other people. We gonna gangbang on these other people. That's basically what that symbolizes. That's why I go back to this book, The Lost Continent of Mu. In this book, they're telling us that the great spirit is a serpent. So what do you mean your peregrination is when you got a prophetic vision of an eagle eating a snake? What does that mean? What are you stating when you make claims like that? Like, I know that's like basically saying the GDs on the BDs, right? When you were BD, you dropped the forks on the GDs. When you were GD, you slam the rakes, right? Or what they call it, on the BDs. That's just gang rhetoric. That's just like saying I'm gonna conquer this other group of people. Invaders. And who they invaded were the serpent worshipers. The serpent worshipers being the people that we can connect, again, I'm gonna say it again, to the kings of men, the Nagas, or I'm gonna give you a word that most people know it as Negus, right? When you hear people say, oh yeah, Negus means king, black king, that's Naga. Naga, Naga. So it's not Negus or whatever the African term for it, whatever. Naga, the kings of man, right? The serpent worshipers, the followers of the true Quetzalcoatl, right? The believers in God, Allah. Right? They conquered those peoples. And these Aztecs, Mexicas, and other tribes, they believed in multiple deities. And this is where you get that deity worship, that multiple pagan deity worship amongst these tribes. This is where it stems from. So again, it had a vision of an eagle perched on a cactus, devouring a snake in present-day Mexico City. Right? Although most historiography focuses on the actual migration and establishment of city-states, the exact meaning of Aztlan is debated and has proven to be of great importance to indigenous peoples as indicated throughout time in various maps and codices. Some experts believe Aztlan means place of white herons, while others interpret it more simply as a place of whiteness. When they say place of whiteness, they do not mean white people. We're talking about snow, right? Cold region, cold area, right? That's what we're talking about. Place of whiteness, snow up in the mountains, up in the cliffs, right? Bob Hodges in Vijay Mishra's article, Aboriginal Place, views the desert in Peter Skipper's cartographic painting as partly absent owing to purposely chosen negative colors, and the lighter color depicting a place of abundance. According to Walter Mignolo in Mapa Sanguina, the spatial narrative of the Aztec pre-regination from Aztlan to the Valley of Mexico is indicative on the negative and positive depictions often seen in indigenous maps during the Pinturist period or First period, which took place from 1540 to 1560. Mignolone explains that the geographical impression has been interpreted in the negative. The negative is reflective of what the Amerindians did not possess versus the positive, which was reflective of what they possess. It may be possible that the Nahuatl people saw Aztlan as a place of whiteness, and the positive as a place of abundance and a place they possessed. No. False. Right? That's all false, and I'm going to prove it. Whether Aztlan is a mythical or historical fact, it functioned as all truth to the Aztec people, evidenced by the extensive Bertolini Codex now housed at Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History. It is one of the most important and longest surviving chronicles of the Meixca people from Aztlan to the city of Tenochtitlan. I'll be forgetting how to pronounce that. So anywho, that's just some background on Aztlan, right? And here are the codices that they're talking about. This is basically just depicting their migration out of Aztlan and coming into the Valley of Mexico. Right? We see the serpents, multiple serpent depictions. Right? These are codices that they got in the museum over there right now. Right? Over there right now. Here you go. Here's your eagle, your griffin. Here's your eagle and your griffin. There's your cactus. Right, let's continue. What else we see? What else are we going to see? Again, the serpent. Again, some more. And wondering what these things could depict. Like, this stuff is just so interesting. Like, looking at it, it's just like, wow. Like, I wonder what it is. So we got a giant bug right here. Wonder what that could interpret. And then it goes on. It continues. Right? It continues. And what does it tell us? It says this is the Bertolini Codex, and it's housed at the Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology. The Bertolini Codex is one of the most important surviving chronicles of the history of the Meixca people. Specifically, it details the journey of the Meixca from their mythical homeland of Aztlan, from which they were expelled, and the subsequent journey to the Valley of Mexico. This is where they eventually founded the city of Tenochtitlan, today Mexico City, and started their empire. The Bertolini Codex is one of the most important surviving sources of this story. Now, something very interesting for people to think about. What if, when they say, as far as them being exiled, the Mongols basically owned the Tartars. They conquered the Tartars. So when they talking in terms of exile, could they be saying around the time when Genghis Khan was pretty much enslaving the Tartars and forcing them out of their lands so that he can conquer their lands, right? And can we connect that to Aztlan being a part of the farthest East Asia theory, right? Because we know the Mongols made it to the Southwest United States. We know that. We know the Tartars made it. And is this where that connection lies, though? It's very interesting. You know, they got old shipwrecked Mongolian boats on the Southwest, off the shores of Cali. Old boats, shipwrecked. Right, so that brings a great question, right? Could that be what connects those people? Right, let's see what they say here. I highlighted a couple parts right here because I'm assuming it was interesting before we move forward. What do I got? This is a little interesting story, right? I could save this for another video, though. This is actually diving into a figure or a character from one of the Conjuring movies called The Ghost of La Llorona. I don't know if people even seen that one before, but yes, this is from a Conjuring movie, right? Mexican folklore. But this folklore goes so deep as far as Aztlan and the Meixca people, and how her and another lady are basically the woman responsible for creating the first mestizos, the first mixed race Aboriginal European children. But we could definitely save this one for another video. That's another interesting one, but I'm gonna move forward. So diving back into the Mongolian and Tartarian invasion of the Americas, we are going to actually talk about these 7 tribes that came from Aztlan, the ancient name of Mexico being Anahuac, the Toltecs, and basically just what was happening around this time and how we can connect these people back to the Tartars, right? I just want to dive into this a little bit just so that we can regain the understanding of who these people are. Like I said, understand that they are not, some of the first cultures here in America, right? They are not connected to any of a great majority of the tribes that exist or that we know of, right? There's no connection, right? There's many different groups of peoples that make up these tribes, right? Many different groups of people, skin complexions, phenotypes. It's just like a melting pot of mixed peoples. But that's also what makes it even more interesting. So let's dive into it, man. I want people to, focus up. Let's connect. Let's draw correlations. Let's go through the reading. Let's go through the case files. And, let's make it interesting. So now, what does it say? It says, we will now endeavor to give the reader a sketch of Anahuac being Mexico, before the arrival of the Mexicans being the Meixca, the Azteks. They go into the Toltecs, says Clavigo, are the oldest nation of which we have any knowledge that is very imperfect, right? Reading the footnotes, it says, when the Mexicans arrived in Mexico, says Clavigo, they found it full of large and beautiful cities. There were already people here, right? They already had it looking as if it was like a big city before the creation of the Aztec city of Tenochtitlan clan. Right before the creation of that city, they already had it looking majestic, right? The people that were already dwelling there. It says they are supposed to have come from the more northern parts of America, or rather from the most eastern parts of Asia. Farthest East Asia. If Aztlan is Northwest America, it's Southwest America, and they telling us that they could have came from the northern shores, to the northern parts of America, the western shores of America, or the most eastern parts of Asia, then what does that tell us about America? As farthest East Asia you could go, right? There's no further. Hey, I just want people to think about that. Think about that. It says they are supposed to have come from the more northern parts of America, or rather from the most eastern parts of Asia to the western shores of America. The farthest East Asia you can go. Right? Again, Queen Khalifa, she was chilling on the western shores of America. Right? She is of Tartarian stock. That nation is of a Tartarian stock. This opinion is supported by the general tradition of those nations, which asserts that their ancestors came into Anahuac from the countries of the north and northwest. Also by the remains of many ancient edifices built by these people in their migrations, as well as the common belief of the people of the north, and also by ancient paintings of the Toltecs, which represented the migration of their ancestors through Asia, the northern countries of America, and founding the kingdom of Tula. Right, here we go, another ancient kingdom. Tula, the Toltecs founded Tula. But they letting us know they came through Asia and came into America through the most northern part, crossing through that cold and desolate zone. The Toltecs being, as they say, banished from their own country. Right? Why is all of these people being exiled? Right? The Aztecs and many others, they were exiled. See? Like we just read, they were expelled. These people, this is what connects them back to the Tartars. Hu Talapalan, supposed to be in the kingdom of Tolan, from which they derived their name, began their journey AD 544. In every place they came to, they tarried only as long as they liked, or found provisions. But when they made long stay, they erected houses and sowed the land with corn, cotton, and other plants, the seeds of which they carried with them. Right, you know, because we know corn, right? That's the mother cultivator, right? So that's what I call it. Like, you know, we have Mother Earth. This is mother cultivator, corn, right? Because this is what basically most people used, right, to help provide provisions, food. Thus, they traveled southward for 104 years till they arrived at Tolantinzinco, about 50 miles east of the spot where many centuries after was founded the famous city of Mexico. 20 years afterwards, they removed about 40 miles to the west, where on the banks of a river they founded the city of Tolan, or Tula, after the name of their native country. Tula is in Mongolia. So they naming a country here in America after their mother country, Tula. Tula is in Mongolia. Tula. There ain't no Tula in America. Right? That's in Mongolia. And then here is the Tolan, the archaeological site in Mexico, built by these Tartars, these Toltecs, right? Remnants of the past. It's beautiful to see it, man. Very beautiful to see it, right? Because it's still there, right? What else we got? From what it follows, it will appear how extremely probable it is that the Toltecs immigrated from the river Tula in Mongolia, near their holy see, Baikal. The river Tula joins the Oregon, and after being increased with several others, at length falls into Lake Baikal. It has more woods and finer meadows on its banks than the Kurlan. And on its north side are mountains covered with large firs, which afford an agreeable prospect. The Mongols speak of it with admiration. On the banks of this river, there is a residence of a great Lama. In the year 506, all the North Tartary was full of convulsions and movements. And this picks up at the end, but the Grand Khan, the Guijin, whose residence was on the banks of Tula, and the Tartars of Goa, who were then sovereigns of part of China, were alarmed. A prodigious number of hordes of Huns were dispersed about the Obi and the Angara. When the Goa acquitted the countries about the river Onan, all of the Huns settled there. So the Huns chased these people out. The Huns, chased these folks out of Asia and into America. So when they talking about them being expelled, right? Expelled, or what's the other word? Banished. Right? They were chased out by the Huns. And when the Huns slid through, other children of Japheth, these folks came over here to America. I've been saying, you know what? I'm not even going to get hype. Because I've been doing this for a while. Even before I read this, I had that idea that the Mongols is the reason why the Tartars came over here, or why these Native Americans are over here. Right? They're all Mongols. They all the same people. And they came over here because they was running away from the Huns and many other tribes that were dwelling about. We're going to actually go into a good research about the Tartars and the Huns too, man. I got that book. That's a real good one. So now that we understand that, once I bring that one to the channel, we'll be able to connect this information to that information and be able to draw the lines, again, connect the dots. But yeah, so thus they traveled southward for 104 years till they arrived at we went through all of that already. So again, it says, sorry y'all, 20 years afterwards, they removed about 40 miles to the west, where on the banks of a river they founded the city of Toulon, or Tula, after the name of their native country, which became the capital of the Toltecan kings. Their monarchy began AD 670 and lasted about 384 years. The Toltecs were the most celebrated people of Anahuac for their superior civilization and skill in the arts, and they lived under regular laws. Now, real quick, I just want to go through these footnotes because they dropping some fire in there. A lot of stuff that we got to understand, right? We got to gain a grasp of this ancient Tartarian information. So it says, the emperor of South China saw with grief the north of China under the domination of the Tartars of Gui, and solicited the Huns to attack them from the north. Right? So the emperor of South China told the Huns to slide on the Tartars and pack them up. So what had happened was the Huns had about 300,000 cavalry. They were not successful against the Gui and returned home. In 507, the Huns were conquered by the Timlin from the Iritish and the Obi, who drove them to the south and dispersed them. In 508, the Gui returned, and the Timlin were constrained to flee westward. In 520, Su Hoi became Grand Khan for the Guiyojin, and on taking the throne, his youngest brother suddenly disappeared. A sorceress named Tivan declared that he had been carried to heaven, but that she could cause him to reappear. The Khan, who was desirous to see his brother, prepared a tent as Tivan directed on the border of a lake, in which Tivan offered a sacrifice to the spirit of heaven. When the young man appeared suddenly and declared that he had been in heaven during the whole time of his absence, the emperor was so pleased with Tivan's power, and she is said to have possessed other charms. So that kind of sounds like that whole Ishtar story. They getting into that whole Ishtar story. But back into the Toltecs. So it says, the nations that have succeeded them avow that they are indebted to the Toltecs for their knowledge of the culture of grain, cotton, pepper, and the most useful fruits. But remember, the Toltecs, again, assimilated with the people who were already here when they got here, because they were already people here. They've been people here since 3500 BCE. Right? The Toltecs came way after that. Right? Way after that. So when people give thanks to them for bringing them culture, we got to remember the Toltecs stole their culture from other people as well. Right? So let's continue. They had the art of casting gold and silver into what form they pleased, and acquired great reputation from the cutting of all kinds of gems. But nothing raised their character so high as their system for arrangement of time, which was adopted by all the civilized nations of Anuwak. All the people of Mexico adopted the Toltec system for arranging time, right? Which could have came from the Mayans as well, right? Because we know these Mayans were the first people to technically use a compass, right? To use a compass, to use astrology to tell the time, right? It is said that observing in their own country how the solar year exceeded the civil year by about 6 hours, they regulated it by interposing the intercalary day once in 4 years, which they did above 100 years before the Christian era. Their religion was idolatrous, and they are supposed to be the inventors of the great part of the mythology of the Mexicans. The Toltecs are the folks who invented the mythology for the Meixca tribes. This includes the Aztecs. Toltecs, so they were idolaters. They invented the mythology for those people. Again, like I said, when the Aztecs talk about Quetzalcoatl, right? When they talk about Quetzalcoatl, they are not talking about Quetzalcoatl in his truest, in his purest, in his origin form, right? The great supreme spirit. When they talking about their deities, they are being idolaters. Idolaters, right, bro? Fire, flames. The Toltecs multiplied exceedingly and extended their population every way in numerous and large cities. They were afflicted with drought, dreadful famine, and mortality in the reign of Toplitzin, who died A.D. 1052. That was their last ruler. Now, if you folks remember, 1034, or let me go into it. Let's go back into it. They came out their caves, right? They came out their caves. 1000 BCE. Right? This is when the communication between the American Southwest and the Valley of Mexico increased. This is when these people began to communicate. That they were already out their caves into Mexico. So 1052, right? This is the end of the Toltecan reign. Right? They were already up out of Aztlan, right? All of these people though coming from the same place. Right? So what else we got? So yes, Toplitzin, who died AD 1052, and with him the Toltecan monarchy terminated. Some of the wretched remains of the nation removed to Yucatan, some to Guatemala, and some continued in the kingdom of Tula, and dispersed themselves in the valley where Mexico was afterwards founded. There cannot be a doubt that the Toltecs had a clear notion of the deluge. There cannot be a doubt they understood the deluge, as with most other peoples, right? But look, they saying that they dispersed into Mexico, which means remnants of that nation was somewhere dwelling amongst those other peoples, right? It's the same thing with every other tribe. People don't just die off. That's not how things work, right? If they stopped calling us black tomorrow, that don't mean all black people died, right? That's not how things work, right? That just means we go under a new banner. It's conquest. That's just how it works. For about a century, Anahuac remained almost depopulated and desolate until the arrival of a great number of the Chichimecas, another tribe, in AD 1170, who came originally from the northern countries. Their native land they call Amaquemacan, right? But look, we already know Anahuac was definitely not this depopulated and desolate. What they said for about a century. What is a century? 100 years. A century is 100 years. So, if the Toltecan reign ended in 1052, or what it said, 1052, 100 years later would be 1152. So, who truly was dwelling in America at 1152? And here we have it. Right here we have it. In 1152, we had the Poverty Point culture. Oh no, that's BCE. Let me move forward. Sorry. Oops. We had the Mayans. Right, the Mayans. The Zapotecs. Right, those folks. Who else? Teotihuacan. Well, Teotihuacan was desolate at the time. But the Mayans were in Mexico at the time. So what do they mean depopulated and desolate? That's just not how things work. People don't just die off like that. It's impossible. Right? So what else? Yeah, they came. So these Chichimecas came from a land called Amaquemacan, where they say different monarchs ruled their country in many years. They were 18 months on their journey, on which they passed through the ruins of the buildings constructed by the Toltecs, and then arrived at Tula. In the character of these people, a certain degree of civilization was blended with many traits of barbarity. They had distinctions between the nobility and commonality, and the plebeians reverenced their superiors and their prince. They neither practiced agriculture nor those arts which accompanied civil life. They lived on game and fruits and roots of spontaneous growth. Their clothing was the skins of beasts, and their arms bows and arrows. Their religion consisted of the simple worship of the sun. Right? And this is also where we could connect the Choctaw origin story. It says, right, it was two brothers and they had a quarrel regarding the possessions left by their father. Right, it's the same thing with the Choctaws. It was two brothers, but they didn't have any type of quarrel. Right, but check this part. This part is very interesting. It says the description of these people are that of the Mongols. They came by the same road and spoke the same language of the Toltecs. So what does that say of the Toltecs? Those people being Mongols. Right? It says one of their princes was sent by Jolot, his father, to survey the country. And Jolot established himself in Tinyawak, 6 miles north of the site of the future Mexico, and distributed his people in the neighboring lands. In the process of time, he became acquainted with several of the Toltecan families, who had remained, with whom he encouraged alliances, and from them acquired the arts of agriculture, of digging for metals and casting them, of cutting stones, spinning and weaving cotton and other things, in all of which their manners and mode of life were improved. Right, so the Toltecans basically taught these people how to plant and grow grass and stuff, and grow crops and whatnot. 8 years had scarcely elapsed when 6 respectable persons with a considerable retinue arrived from a kingdom near to Amaquimacan, and we suspect them to have been the 6 tribes of the Nahuatl, whom we shall shortly treat of. Right, so the Nahuatl tribes, these Mexicas, right, came through knocking on the door, right, knocking on these Chichimeca's door. Like, yep, we pulling up, right, from the same road, right, traveled by the same road as the other 2 previous peoples, right, and they just said they was Mongols. So what does that tell us about the new tribes? Right, so look, after the beginning of the 13th century, 3 princes arrived with a great army of the Alcoahan nation, natives of Tecuahan, which was not very distant from Amequemacan. These princes were named Alcoanatzi, Chicoanoqualati, and Tetzontecomal, of the most noble house of Tzitzin. They were the most civilized of any since the Toltecs. The Chichimecs at this period had moved to Tehuesco. The 3 princes represented themselves as sons of a great lord, but had been attracted by the reports they had heard of the happiness of those who were under the Chichimecan monarch. Their courtly manners pleased the sovereign, and he gave his 2 daughters in marriage to the 2 eldest princes. The rejoicings lasted 60 days. Wrestling, running, combats with wild beasts, right, which is very Mongol-like. Those Chichimecas, who were most civilized, now changed the name of the nation to Alcoas. Others who were preferred their usual roving life and hunting pursuits joined the Otomis, who had the same disposition and occupied a tract of more than 300 miles. Their descendants harassed the Spaniards for many years. Jolot now divided his kingdom into several distinct states and assigned them to his sons-in-laws and other nobles of each nation. Population and civilization increased. Ambition having urged some of the chiefs to rebel, they were put to death. On the decease of Jolot, a brave man who was affectionate to his children and mild to his people, he was succeeded by his son, Nopaltzin, and when he died, his son, Tolotzin, ascended the throne. The succession continued in his family, and the Chichimecan nation ended like the Mexican in 1520. Chichimecas, they again, another tribe that did not end. They migrated north, right? They migrated into the Americas, right? The Chichimecas being the father tribe of some of the tribes such as like the Natchez or the Atacapas or some of the Chickasaws and some of the Choctaws, right? Very, very close relations and close ties to those peoples, right? They migrated north back into the Americas, right? Back into the Americas. Let's continue though. So it says, the migration of the Nahuatls in 1178 consisted of 7 tribes: the Xochimecs, Chalecs, Tapanecs, Alcoahans, Talahuics, Talacalstecs or Teochichimecs, and Aztecs or Mexicans, who, as well as the Chichimecs, all spoke the Toltec language. Again, if they said the Toltecs were Mongols, right, they spoke in Mongolian dialect, and all of these people share the same language, then what does that mean for them? What does that mean about their tribes, right? These tribes called their country Aztlan or Teotihuacan and declared it to be near Amaquemacan. right? So where would that place Amakwe Makan? We know that Aztlan is southwest United States. Where would that place Amakwe Makan? Is this another farthest East Asia that you can go? Let's see if we can figure it out. Let's just see. Where's Amakwe Makan? Okay, so they're saying this is the eastern panhandle of Mexico State, between Mexico City. If this is even the same place. Amakwe Makan. We're going to try to find that one out. I wonder where that one is at. Right, but anywho. Yeah, these tribes called their country Aztlan, or Teotihuacan, and declared it to be near Amakwe Makan. The Aztecs had migrated from Aztlan. The Aztecs had migrated there from Aztlan by Gama's account in 1064 and by Clavigos in 1160. So that gives it 1,000 years. 100 years, 100 years in between. The Mexicans properly so-called separated themselves from the Aztecs and the Chaleks in the mountains of the Zacatecas. That being, let's check the asterisk. Where's the asterisk? Okay, they're not letting us know. With respect to the period of the arrival of the people of the Michoacan, the Alcuas and Cholhuas, who were usually co-founded in some other tribes, the reader is referred to Clavigo, Book 2. The 13th century appears to be the probable epoch, but the history is too confused to admit of what exact elucidation as that author acknowledges. Genghis and his successors kept Tartary in all of Asia in terror and bloodshed from the year 1166 for above a century, right? So not saying that these folks are actually Mongols, but they're all Tartars, right? They're Tartars who was fleeing from the Mongols and the Khan. The Aztecs or Mexicans, says Clavigo, were the last people who settled in Anahuac. They lived till about the year of Christ, 1160, in Aztlan, a country north of the Gulf of California. Judging by the route of their migration, said Bentecourt, to be 2,700 miles from Mexico, but according to Brotini, a province of Asia. True Asia. The farthest East Asia you can go. This is what I be talking about. That's true Asia. The farthest East Asia you can go. True Asia. So they saying Aztlan, right? When we're going back to the image, let's go back to the map. Aztlan, here in the southwest United States, north of the Gulf of California, right? That's where they're placing their home. They're telling us that that's a province of Asia, right? The farthest East Asia you can go, which also supports our Lemuria Naga Mayan theory. Because if the Nagas can be connected to the Brahmas in India, the Egyptians and the Mayans, then that also says that America within itself is the farthest East Asia you can go. We the middle land, literally. We are the land that divides the two. When you connect America back to the mainland, we are Asia. And then on the other side, we are Europe and Africa. So we just all of that in one. Like straight up, the true East Asia, The farthest East Asia you can go. And they basically letting us know right there. This is Aztlan. That's where Aztlan is from. I mean, that's where Aztlan is. Right, look, check this out. We're going to read a little bit more. There was among the Aztecs a person of great authority called Huitzizon, who was for some reason not known, persuaded his own countrymen to change their country. While he was thus meditating, a little bird was singing in a tree. Tihui, tihui, which in their language means, let us go. Do you hear that, friend? Teclaputzin, said he. It is the warning of some secret divinity to leave this country and find another. These respectable persons drew the body of the nation over to their party, meaning 6 other tribes. And in the ancient paintings of this migration, Torquemada says that there is an arm of the sea which I believe to represent the universal deluge. Bertini says it means the Gulf of California, which they crossed to reach Culiacan. But as there are remains of their buildings on the river Gila and Permia, they must have come by land to Culiacan and have stopped at Casa Grande in latitude 29 degrees, where there is an edifice of 3 floors and a terrace, by universal tradition attributed to them. There is no entrance to the underfloor, but a scaling ladder is put down from the second. It is defended on one side by a lofty mountain, and the rest being surrounded by a wall 7 feet thick, and foundations of which are existing. The beams of the roof are pine and well finished, and there are stones as large as millstones. Right? They crossed the mountain technically. They talking about crossing a mountain. Right? And when they talking about having the Gulf of California or the arm of the sea and having the universal deluge, they saying that they crossed when the waters receded from the Gulf of California and land came out and they were able to cross. That's what they stating. This is what they stating right here. So is Southwest America true East Asia? Can it be the true East Asia? Is Aztlan the true East Asia? Right? They went crazy in this one, man. I'm not even going to lie. And we're going to finish this one up in the next live stream. I got another live stream dropping real soon. Basically, just reconnecting these theories back to one another before I even dive into the history of Lemuria book. Right? Or the what's the title? Let me get the title again, so I can make sure I know exactly what I got for y'all. Right? The Lost Continent of Mu. Right? We're gonna go into that one much later, but we just gotta finish this just to understand the role of these Aztecs and many other tribes who were in America, right? Because they aren't a part of the history books that, you know, that we should want to read or want to follow, right? All this idolatry that they had going on, right? All that misrepresentation of what true worship is supposed to look like, right? A lot of that was going on amongst these nations, right? And again, like I said, they colonized the people who were here. Just like with the Incas. They colonized the Americas when they came over here. Yeah, they could have been fleeing from one thing, but when they came here and they got here, they colonized the Americas. Right? Or if not that, then they were already in America, just in the part that we can consider the farthest East Asia. And real quick, while I have the time, if you guys are interested, man, shop the Copper Colors coloring books. We got 4 editions out right now. All very, very interesting. You know, you would love it. Get it for yourself. Get it for your child. Color. Immerse yourself into a world of creativity. You know, kick back, relax. Maybe roll you one. Drink your little drink. Do what you do. You know, cop you some copper colors. Fall in love. Support the brand. We got motivational journals dropping soon. Comic books dropping soon. So much content coming out, man. I can't wait. I can't wait to put these things out just to give it all to the community. Because that's what this stuff is about. That's what this stuff is about. Understanding the origins. Understanding the roots. Understanding your ancestry. Understanding your bloodline. Understanding yourself, who you truly are. You know, where you come from. You know, much love, man. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. This was a long one. And like I said, I know I may tend to get tongue-tied here and there. Folks can always stop me and ask me to explain myself. You know, but for those who continue to rock out and grasp the information and retain the information, man, I appreciate y'all. And I'm going to continue doing what I do. It's the Copper Color King. Have a good night. I love y'all. And we out of here.